Hey, what's up guys? In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to texture your ceiling. If you're not texturing your ceiling and going flat, you can go ahead and skip this lesson. But what we're gonna be doing is a knockdown texture, which we recommend to most of our clients that we're doing work for. It honestly hides the most, but yet when it's painted in the ceiling, it looks very, very flat. So it's probably your best of both worlds. It hides all the little tiny flaws, and it honestly just looks really nice, and it definitely will up the value of your home. But first, before we actually show you how to texture, we're going to show you kind of the things that we're using. So we're going to go ahead and use ourselves a hopper. You can pick one of these up. They're actually not too expensive. You're definitely going to need this for your knockdown texture. We have ourselves a compressor over here. There's a little pancake compressor. If you're doing a lot and you have a bigger compressor, you're definitely going to want that. It's going to keep up with you a whole lot faster. We got a hose over here as well that we're going to connect to our hopper. We have a knockdown blade right over here. And this knockdown blade is what we're going to use after we shoot the mud on the ceiling. We're going to wipe it with this. Okay. If you had potentially tons and tons of knockdown ceilings that you were doing or texturing, you could go ahead and rent a machine like this or even go out and buy one. They're extremely expensive. We use these. We're doing this often, so we go ahead and run that. But for all of our little jobs or even just little patch jobs, it's way quicker just to run a hopper. So we still use this a lot, guys. And you can do a whole house with this, no problem. It's definitely, we've done it. We've done it for years. So let's go ahead and mix our mud. So the mud that we texture with is just a green box or a green pail. It's called all-purpose, okay? And I have a pail here with some of it already in it, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and get our drill ready. We're gonna put our drill in, give her a mix. And now, there's lots of different textures of knockdown. You can have a really, really thick knockdown or you can have a thin knockdown. We typically go for a thinner knockdown just because when it's painted, it looks more flat. And people generally are liking flat ceilings today. If you want to have a really, really thick knockdown or you're trying to match a thick knockdown, the thicker your mud is, the better, okay? It's gonna help set up a lot thicker and not wipe down so runny. But here, if you come in here and show them this. This here is fairly runny. You can see how it's starting to just drip off. If we were to put this on a knife, it would just fall off. We're just about there. I actually want it even just a little bit more runny than that. So I'm just gonna add water into it and give her a good mix. All right. And there you go, see? Perfect. Nice and runny. Not too runny, I don't want it like water. I actually want it to have some body to it, but that's gonna be good. Now you want to keep all of your mud kind of to that same consistency. You don't want to change consistencies through batches. Sometimes you can get 2 or 3 buckets and go ahead and mix all of your mud up. This will honestly do 2 bedrooms, no problem right here. So we're going to go ahead and put some of this into our hopper. We'll load it up, and then I'm going to take you guys into the bathroom. And once we go into the bathroom, we're going to go put a little bit on and just kind of show you what you want it to look like in order to get a nice knockdown ceiling, all right? We're ready to texture, okay? We've got our hopper filled with mud. And one thing I would say, they actually have different sizes of orifices that you can put into these. We usually are using the largest size, okay? And with our mud kind of in that runny state, we're gonna go ahead, we set it at about 50. We have a PSI on our compressor at about 50. The lower the pressure you go, the larger of a splatter you're gonna get. And the higher the pressure you go, the smaller splatter you're gonna get. And then as you downsize your orifice, you'll get even smaller. So if you really want like a fine orange peel or something, you can put the smallest orifice in, make your mud really runny, turn your pressure up to like 100, 120, and just spray, and it'll just do a perfect little tiny textures. So before I actually put this on the ceiling and even start knocking down, we're gonna go ahead and get a test, and we've did some tests already and we're pretty close. So if you can see over here, see how we have like globs that are, you know, like the size of a pea, some of them a little bit bigger, some a little bit smaller. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for, okay, for our kind of knockdown. So honestly, whatever you do, you just want to keep consistency after you start doing on your ceiling. Consistency is key. You want it to all kind of look uniform. So we're going to go ahead and start spraying a little bit. Go ahead and make sure that when you're texturing that you're constantly moving the hopper. You don't want to hold it in one spot for too long. If you do that, you'll soak the ceiling and you will get this huge smear that you don't want on your ceiling. So you can always add more texture in. So go ahead and go light and keep it moving. Sometimes small circles work great. Okay, so we just finished texturing the ceiling, and you really want to make sure you get into the corners when you're texturing, okay? Make sure that you get that right up into the corner, and you want a nice, even texture across the whole ceiling. You want it to look very uniformed. You don't want to see any misses or any areas that have light, like almost no texture, because when you knock down through there, you'll tell. So like, even like right here, it's a little light, hit that again. But we're gonna just go through and make sure it all looks uniform. So we're going to let this sit on the ceiling just for a little while here, probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes even, and then maybe just do a little test. Sometimes you could let it sit a little longer if it's super humid, or maybe your mud is really, really wet. But we actually want to let it start to kind of build up and soak in. So we are going to use this here as a knockdown blade. Okay, you can buy these at any kind of store, drywall supply stores, paint stores, even home improvement stores. Okay, it's just like a squeegee material. And we use these for knockdown. They're great. But if you don't have that, you can also use like a 10 or 12-inch blade. When you're doing this though, with a 10 or 12-inch blade, let it set up a little bit longer and then just kind of test just like a little tiny spot. Okay, so you're gonna come up here, just test a little spot. Make sure you kind of like that knockdown, and then just do it real light. Pull it across your ceiling. So you can knock down with one of these or even a trawl, but we like to use these squeegees just because the corners here are really, really like, they're not metal, so they're rubber, so it leaves less of a line. Here's our test.
Do that corner then to the left to be able to see it better.
Go ahead and test right there. Cool that. So we're not applying a lot of pressure, just a little bit of pressure. And we're just pulling it lightly. Oh, that's looking good. There you go. He's going to put just a little bit of pressure, not a lot. And as you pull it across, you see that pattern that's starting to, that's our knockdown. That's our knockdown texture. So right there. So we've let this sit probably honestly 3 minutes or so, and now we're going over it. And so he's going to pull from one side, go back to the other side. You can come back to your corners too and just kind of pick them out to make sure that you knocked it all down. And that's why you get the name Knockdown here. And so when painted, you can see how awesome that's going to look. It's going to look basically like a flat ceiling, but if you're standing underneath it and look straight up, it'll look like it's got a little texture to it. So here you go. He's pulling back his sides a little bit. So that's it, guys. You go ahead and go over your entire ceiling with a blade or with a knockdown blade, and you guys got it. One thing I should mention too, make sure you are completely covered up before you start texturing. As you can tell, we are super dirty in here, all right? So anything that's not covered is going to get texture on it or dust on it or some sort of mud on it. So that's why we do a really good job covering up. So that's it. And we'll go ahead and knock down and this room, and we're going to spray out the rest of the rooms and then knock down those rooms as well. And here is our finished ceiling. Guys, the knockdown looks awesome. And one thing to note, we always pull our knockdown in the same direction in the house. We don't change direction from room to room, okay? You may need to apply different pressures as you're going through if it's sat longer or not. Here's a bunch of it that we've sprayed. We have not knocked down yet. Don't get too far in front of yourself. Make sure you have time to go back and knock it down. Go ahead and do that, and we'll see you in the next lesson.